Welcome to Learn More. In the previous lesson, we learned about the branches of psychology. We looked at developmental psychology, counseling psychology, clinical psychology, social psychology, psychometric. We also looked at educational psychology. So we looked at these branches of psychology and we explained them in details. And I said we're going to be looking at some other branches of psychology in this video. So we have looked at 6 branches of psychology. We are also looking at other 6 branches of psychology. I want to give you a very good knowledge about the branches of psychology, so that when you come across these branches of psychology, you could be able to put something down, or when you are trying to explain the branches of psychology, it will not be so new to you. So today we are looking at the other branches of psychology. So it's a continuation of the previous video, of the previous lesson. We are still on the branches of psychology. So let's look at the cognitive psychology. The cognitive psychology is the scientific study of mental process such as attention, language use, memory, perception, problem solving, creativity, and thinking. So the cognitive psychology is an aspect of psychology, is a branch of psychology that focuses study on mental processing such as attention, the way people give attention to things, the language use of people, how people make use of language, how people tend to think, how their memory tends to work very fast. You can see that some people have a very high memory speed, while other people could not really assimilate that quickly. We also have perception, their perception about things, problem solving, and creativity. So in cognitive psychology, we are trying to understand why these traits, or why these characteristics, why they differ among individuals. The knowledge derived from cognitive psychology has been integrated into various and modern disciplines such as the cognitive science, the psychological study, including educational psychology, social psychology, personality psychology, abnormal psychology, developmental psychology, linguistics, and economic psychology. So the knowledge that is being gained from cognitive psychology, it has been so useful in so many other branches of psychology, knowing fully well that these other branches of psychology has to do with humans, and human has to work with their brain. So we are trying to understand why humans tends to work in different way and by different people, even in the same situation. What I'm trying to say is that if the same situation is given to Mr. A, Mr. B, and Mr. C, we are trying to understand why there could be a very high level of creativity in Mr. B than Mr. C, and why there could be a very low level of creativity in Mr. A than Mr. B. So Mr. A could not have that creative skill, but Mr. B could have a very high creative skill. So there's something that we also call problem solving. Problem solving is the ability to solve problem at a very fast speed and at a very at the shortest possible time. So that is problem solving. So there are some people that have this ability of problem solving. Cognitive psychology studies why different people have their own level of problem solving, creativity, and thinking. Why some people could solve problems very fast, some people are very creative in bringing out solutions to things, and some other people have a very high thinking capacity. So it is the cognitive psychology that studies the science of mental processing. So that's cognitive psychology. So let's look at comparative psychology. Comparative psychology refers to the scientific study of the behavior and mental process of non-human animals. That is, animals that are non-humans. You can talk about monkey, donkey, you can talk about cats, you can talk about dogs, animals that are not human. So we are the comparative psychologists study the behavior of the mental processing of these animals, especially as they relate to phylogenetic history, adaptive significance, and development of behavior. So the comparative psychology is another branch of psychology that studies the mental processing of animals excluding humans. So are trying to study their behavior, how they adapt to their environment, how significant are they to human, and what are their importance to the environment. We are studying so many concepts that are related to these animals. We study their habitat and some other things that are related to the animals. Research in this area addresses many different issues, uses many different methods, and explores the behavior of many different species from insects to primates. So it's not just animals, we also have insects and so on. So the comparative psychology refers to the scientific study of behavior and mental processing of non-human animals. So let's look at the environmental psychology. So we have looked at cognitive psychology, we have also learned comparative psychology. Let's look at environmental psychology. Environmental psychology, like the name implies, environmental psychology is a branch of psychology which studies the relationship between individuals and their environment. It studies the relationship between individuals and their environment. Every individual has an environment, be it your work environment, your school environment, or the environment where you live. So the environmental psychology studies the relationship between you as an individual and your environment. Environmental psychology examines the way in which the natural environment and our built environment shapes us as an individual. How the natural environment and the built environment, the environment we are in now, more of our environment are built environment, where the scape of the land, the forest reserve, the forest, the trees, the wildlife conservation, they have all been tampered on. So most of the environments we have now, they are built environment. So it's studying both natural and built environment and how it influences us as individuals. Environmental psychology explains in details the meaning of environment, encompassing natural environment, social setting, built environment, learning environment, and informational environment. So in environmental psychology, you tend to understand more about the environment, and it studies more about the environment. So let's look at physiological psychology. Physiological psychology is a subdivision of biological psychology that studies the neural mechanism of perception and behavior through direct manipulation of the brains of non-human animals subject in controlled experiments. This field of psychology takes an empirical and practical approach when studying the brain and human behavior. Most scientists in this field believe that the mind is a phenomenon that stems from the nervous system. So Physiological psychology is another division of psychology, but majorly it is being brought out from biological psychology. So the physiological psychology normally studies the brain of non-human animals and try to control and how the brain of non-human animals can be influenced and controlled, how it can be manipulated, directly manipulated and controlled. So how they could control the brain of a dog, how they could control the brain of a cat, some other animals, and how when they are controlled they could be used in a positive way. So that is the aspect where physiological psychology comes in. So let's look at applied psychology. Applied psychology is an aspect of psychology that uses the psychological method and finding of scientific psychology to solve practical problems of human and animal behavior and experience. So in applied psychology, we are applying the theories and the knowledge gotten from psychology in solving practical human problems and practical animal problems, not just human beings now, but animals. It should be noted that some of these branches of psychology, they are interwoven. Like, you should not take the meaning of one to the other. So you should be able to understand what applied psychology is for. Now, for applied psychology, you are applying the experience and you are applying the knowledge of psychology in solving practical human problems, and you are solving practical animal problems. To solve practical problems of human and animal behavior and experience. So that is what applied psychology basically is. Some of the areas influenced by applied psychology include mental health, organizational psychology, business management, education, health, product design, ergonomics, law, etc. So applied psychology, it's majorly applying. You are applying the knowledge gotten from psychology to solve practical problems for human, for animal behavior and experience. So let's look at industrial psychology. Industrial psychology or organizational psychology is also known as occupational psychology or work psychology. Industrial psychology is a branch of psychology which applies psychological knowledge in solving problems related to work. It's applying psychological knowledge in solving problem that is related to work. Related to work. Industry, like the name implies, industry. When you are talking about industry, you are talking about work, and we have so many type of industry. So this industrial psychology now, it handles work related issues, like knowing the best trade for the job. We are trying to select the right personnel for the job, fixing the right personnel to the right job, controlling power and authority in workplace. We have retirement, we have retrenchment, etc. So every work related problem is being handled by industrial psychology. So someone that handles these matters, they are called industrial psychologists. So I would want you to understand the branches of psychology. We have given 6 before, and now we are explaining more 6, and we have explained more 6. So if you don't understand at a glance, you could go over the lesson again, go over the lesson again and make sure you get yourself acquainted to the terms in the lesson and understand what they mean. Understand the different branches of psychology and try to see if there is any of them that you could by your own develop, like you could by your own say what it means. Supposing there was a question that you should explain more than 6 branches of psychology, I hope if I stopped at the first 6, you may not know or you may not be able to explain others. So that's why we try to put up the other ones, try to put up more 6, so that you can have a handful of the branches of psychology. So we have explained industrial psychology, applied psychology. We also did philosophical psychology. We looked at environmental psychology and comparative psychology and cognitive psychology. So if you combine these 6 now to the other 6 which were given before: developmental psychology, counseling psychology, clinical psychology, social psychology, psychometrics, and educational psychology, you could be able to get more understanding of what psychology is by understanding these branches of psychology. So I would advise, if you could not get it at a glance, like you could not get it at one listening, you could as well go over it again and understand what it means. So in the next lesson, we will be learning about educational psychology. Now we'll look at educational psychology in detail. We'll look at the scope of educational psychology. The objective of the next lesson, we are looking at educational psychology. We'll bring it out in detail and we'll try to explain educational psychology in details and the scope of educational psychology. See you in the next lesson.